the pie. Conquer fears, won't let them reside. Heartbeats pound as we take the dive. Living now feels so alive. Heart steel veins glowing bright. Fitness gone in the dead of night. Dating game, we got the sight. Crushing finance, career out of sight. Man up now, we own it true. Breaking change, just me and you. Success stories everywhere. Living life beyond compare.
Good evening, everybody. I'm so excited to talk about this one because I love science. I love these different experiments that we do. I especially love social experiments. And I've seen this pop up in the news again, the mouse Utopia, and what Calhoun did back in, I believe it was like the 1960s. And I want to dive into that and see some of the parallels it actually has to humankind in our society today. But before I dive into that, joined by Kevin. How we doing?
I'm doing great, man. How about you?
Doing good, doing good. It really is interesting, everything that's been going on. We've seen a lot of upheavals. I think Canada just went fully liberal with their election. They're not happy with Trump. Markets are all over the place. Tariffs are all over the place. And we just see, I don't know, I've seen such an uptick in videos where it's like women's bad behavior or like relationship issues. And that's why I think this mouse Utopia experiment is being brought up again. Now, I know I had shared with you, Better Bachelor actually did a pretty interesting video on it. He did a great job summarizing it. This is not the first time that I've heard about it, but it's good to kind of get that refresher. So just to lay it out for everybody, what this is. Back in the 1960s, this guy Calhoun, what he wanted to do is he wanted to see if in a perfect environment, how would mice act? So essentially this perfect environment, it had unlimited food, limited water. There were no predators, so nothing to worry about. And what would happen? And so essentially what he did is he took 4 pairs of mice. So essentially 4 males, 4 females, and put them into essentially what would be like a luxury hotel where they had many, many rooms. It could fit around, it could hold a population of around 3,000 at max capacity. And he wanted to see, sorry, I'm just getting a phone call here. I don't know who's calling me. And he wanted to see what would happen in this perfect utopia. Would they just thrive and everything would be great? That's what you would assume, right? It actually turned out very differently. So within this first adjustment period, it was less than like a year, I believe it was, that they grew from those 8 mice to around 600. And then as time went on, I think it only lasted around 19 months, so a little less than 2 years. But they reached a capacity of around 2,200, so well below what it could support, but there were some very interesting societal structures that formed. So during this time, everybody kind of fit into an archetype. You would have your alpha males, so to say your alpha males that were aggressive. You would have your beta males that essentially withdrew from society and allowed the alphas to kind of do whatever they wanted to do, which if we talk in some of this red pill of relationship terminology is that 80-20 rule, where 20% of the men are sleeping with 80% of the women. So it shows it right there. It also created a different structure where there were what they called the beautiful ones, which is essentially your like OnlyFans type of girl, where these female mice didn't do anything for society. but instead spent all their time grooming themselves and making themselves look pretty. And then you also start to have a detachment for the females as well. They eventually became hyper aggressive or withdrawn. A lot of the men as well became withdrawn from any type of relationships with the other mice. And these women, I say women, it's hard. It's hard because we do most of our science experiments on mice for a reason, because they're very similar to us, and we can kind of align some of the things there. But the women, a lot of them, they didn't want to become mothers anymore. They would become aggressive to their children as if their children were a chore. A lot of them withdrew from society because they didn't want to deal with the nonsense going on. And over this period of time, you had all these different archetypes that kind of came out, and society completely collapsed. There was like an increase in cannibalism as well. Like they started eating each other. It was really weird. And once they had everything, they had nothing to work for anymore. And I think that's really the parallel that is important to kind of hone in on, because although it may not be a one-to-one comparison with humans and with our society today, I think it's pretty dang close. Because when you have everything and there's nothing you need to work for, what else are you going to do? You got to find something to do. And the society completely deteriorated.
Mhm.
And I know, Kevin, I shared with you Better Bachelor's breakdown of it, just to kind of give you a preface of this entire experiment. What are your thoughts on the whole thing?
Well, to me, it kind of lined out the picture, the movie of what would happen if socialism, as a lot of socialists think in their mind it would be, of how things actually turn out. Because, like you said, everything was given to them. They didn't have to work. They didn't have to hunt their food. They didn't have to protect themselves from predators. They didn't have to protect their children from predators. Everything was given to them. So they lost their soul. They lost their DNA. They lost their willingness to live, essentially, and some became alpha males, some became beta males. Even in that experiment, I don't think Better Bachelor hit on it. Some of the beta males actually became homosexuals. And
Mm.
instead of going after the women anymore, they just found another beta male that they could pal up with, and that was their companion. And that's the life they lived, and they just lived like that till they died. And it kind of shown what socialism can do when you don't have to work for anything and everything's given to you. You collapse as a society because nobody has a purpose anymore. And another, I had known about this, but need the refresher. If you remember, it's been maybe 6 or 7 years now when Seattle went crazy. I think it was probably during the first year or so of the Trump administration, the first Trump term. Remember in Seattle, they had that one section of the city where basically they took it over. They called it Chaz or something like that, the autonomous zone, where they actually blocked it off in the town, a city block. They blocked it off, wouldn't let anybody in, wouldn't let anybody out. But it was basically a socialist block of Seattle that they took over. Well, within a couple of weeks, you saw what happened. One guy decided he was the warlord and was walking around with bodyguards with AK-47s, and he self-appointed himself the ruler of Chaz and basically started making laws within that. And it didn't take but a week or two for that to happen. And that was very similar to this experience, that with the mice, even though it was a longer experience, that happened in real life. And it reminded me of that, of what happens when you try to take over and you try to create a utopia, so to speak, and nature intervenes.
Wow. Yeah, no, I remember what you're talking about. This is really, really interesting. I totally forgot about this, where they blocked it all off, and their demands were essentially that defund the police, that the budget be decreased by half, and it just completely fell apart. I mean, it's not a huge area, but it's still pretty decently sized. I mean, you're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and a half blocks.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's decently sized. That's crazy, and it is. That's a perfect representation of kind of what this experiment was and what happens with that. And I just it's really confusing to me when you try and when you look at this is a perfect example that's more contained versus society as a whole. I think it's very difficult to lay the findings and research from a small experiment into the larger. But even so, you're seeing a lot of the same things. Even just as you were saying, where some of the mice became homosexuals, and a lot of them, like when we talk like MGTOW, men going their own way, or like black pillars, that's a lot of the withdrawn male mice that started to happen more and more and more as time went on. I really think like too, like the beautiful ones, it literally is a perfect one-to-one comparison of these OnlyFans girls. I mean, what was Shannon Sharp recently? Shannon Sharp is dealing with this $50 million lawsuit over a relationship he had with a 19-year-old girl. And she's now personally suing him over the entire thing, just as a cash grab. What is this woman doing? Like, she's literally an OnlyFans model. That's all she does. What is she doing to better society? Nothing.
No, nothing. And now probably the OF money is not as much as she thought it was going to be. So she sees an opportunity to go after Shannon Sharp for, I think, grape allegations, even though it was a consensual relationship when they were together, whether she was 17 when they met, 19 when it happened, whatever. Now she sees an opportunity to take somebody down and get a lot of money out of it. And I've heard, which is always suspect to me, that he has offered her a substantial amount of money to settle this out of court, but she refused and wants to go to court for the 50 million. But I don't know the specifics of that, but you see it all too often of, especially when it comes to athletes getting sued by someone in their past of, wrongdoing, usually SA, grape, something like that. But it always happens 10, 15 years later once they reach a certain point financially, the man does, then they start coming out of the woodwork to want their little piece of it, not contributing to society at all, but still wanting to be able to have the lifestyle that they think they deserve.
Yeah. And, it's interesting. Hey, Drock, just to give you a heads up with that. So Dragon Ship is disbanded. We do want to do another panel show, and we are looking to figure out like the right way to do that. If you have any ideas or like what you would want to see, we're in the current stages of formulating what that's going to look like. But that's essentially what happened. We're just in a transition period. So definitely be on the lookout, because we're going to be doing more of that type of stuff. It's just figuring out exactly the best way to do it. So I found it interesting. I shared that story with you, or I sent it to the group a couple days ago, where that one college football player was going to the NFL, and you had the teens from Ole Miss literally call from their dorm room. And dude, it was funny, but it was like fucked up. Where they pretended to be the New Orleans Saints general manager, and somehow they got his personal phone number. It had to do with them partnering with Boost Mobile for the entire draft this year. And let's just say Boost Mobile was probably not going to be allowed that contract ever again. But with that, like, imagine you're like there on draft day and you're like ready to go. This is your future. And you got somebody who does something like that to you and completely screws with you when you're like having a party with all your friends and you're getting that call and you're like, oh my God, this is it. And then it was a prank phone call. Like, that's where we are with society, where we don't have purpose. It's exactly as you said. When you don't have purpose, then this type of garbage happens. Like, if you don't have anything to work towards or anything to do, people don't even care about each other. They're going to do something like that. Could be emotionally frustrating for somebody just because you want clicks and views on your own video. It's the same thing with the Shannon Sharp thing. Because her OnlyFans is linked to the Instagram and everything else, and all the information is out there and she's in the news, what do you think's happening? she's getting a ton of signups to her OnlyFans because everybody wants to see what this is all about and what Shannon Sharp was messing around with. So it literally is, it's a complete lack of morality when it comes to how we treat other people, and it all becomes selfish.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, and like you said, well, even in the experiment with the mice, you saw that the women became selfish because they didn't have to protect their young. They didn't have to go out and fight for food. They didn't have to do it. Everything was given to them. So you saw how the reaction was, and you saw it from the males as well. The ones that could step up and fill in that alpha role did, and selfishly did it at the behest of everybody else. And the beta males, since they did not have the will or did not have the purpose to mate anymore, because there was really no purpose for any of their lives, because they were living in a utopia where everything was given to them, then you saw how people, even mice, just become all about themselves. And what can I get out of this? And if I'm not getting exactly what I want, who can I screw over in a possible way to get what I want out of life? Not how can I work for it and achieve my goals? No, how can I screw somebody else over?
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting. Like, out of the conclusion from it, some of the key takeaways is exactly what you just said. Societies without purpose, challenge, or healthy boundaries may degrade behaviorally and morally. That's 100, and we're seeing that more and more today. And it's, again, coming back to the roles that people have. So without the meaningful roles, identity or struggle, collapse is inevitable.
Mhm. Well, a good place you'll see that right now in collegiate institutions, especially Ivy League institutions, that very, very, I don't want to say left leaning because I'm painting that brush, but a lot of socialists are teaching those classes, and they're indoctrinating a lot of young kids with socialist ideology. So look at how college, especially Ivy League colleges, are collapsing as far as raising productive, educating productive, and hungry young kids to go out in the workforce and make a difference. No, they come out of college, especially from Harvard, Princeton, Yale, all the institutions that were revered for what you got out of that are now producing kids that come out, don't want to pay their debt off, and want everything given to
Oh
them,
my God.
and
Don't even
think,
get me started
think
on this,
everything
dude.
should come to them and they shouldn't have to work for it. I remember, when I was with Lockheed, we used to have interns, and you would not believe some of the mindset of these kids that thought that they earned $120,000 just to show up. And that was scary to me. So, and that was 6-7 years ago. I can only imagine how much more indoctrinated they are now, because you're seeing that. And this is a real life experiment, just like the mice. This is real life, seeing these kids coming out of this utopia of college where everything's given to them. Everything's told that they deserve everything. And now they're getting out of college, getting slapped in the face, realizing how the world really works. And rather than doing something about it, what do? They go to YouTube, they go to TikTok, they go to protest to voice their opinion on why they are right and should be given everything, rather than working for it like what this country was built on.
Yeah. No, it's 100% true, man. Oh my God. I was watching, I do like following MTR. I think he's a great content creator. And he just had a video I think he released today, and it was a collection of those videos of people complaining about the student loan forgiveness thing. So with the whole student loan thing, like, if you guys remember back when everything was happening with COVID, they essentially paused all payments on your student loans for X period of time. And a lot of people took that opportunity, but then now they have to pay it back. And I believe it ends like literally like next week. So you got to start paying back. And everyone's like freaking out now. Like, I can't afford that. I can't do that. And it's like, well, you're an adult. And as an adult, you signed a contract to pay for this. So why are we like, what is the argument here? And everybody is like freaking out about the entire thing. And especially with everybody complaining about whatever with Trump, which doesn't even make sense because it's not coming from an educated understanding of what's going on. It's coming from a media and emotionally fueled perspective. And it's so crazy to me because I know I've been dealing with it. Yeah, dumbass over here decided to co-sign a loan with my ex-girlfriend so I could help her through school. So I directly involved, even though I don't have a loan that I need to pay, but I still need to be on top of it because I'm the co-signer. And if she defaults, I default. I don't want that to happen. So it's really insane to see like how people like instead of just sacking up and doing the work and paying it off, getting a second job to pay it off, we're gonna instead just complain into the public internet. Like I can't even imagine if somebody at my work saw me complaining about something like that. It just you're not an adult anymore. And it just it blows my mind. And I really don't understand where it comes from. I think that the probably the better solution at that time would have been some type of decrease payment instead of completely letting people go for X amount of time. Because honestly, I think a lot of people are too stupid to understand that interest accrues over time. So if
Yeah.
you're not paying, it's going to stack up and the problem's going to be worse. You should still be chipping away at it as you go along.
Mhm. Yeah, but I mean, with the mindset of, well, I don't want to pay it back, so I shouldn't have to. And that's where the big problem comes in. And then this last administration making these false promises of, well, we're going to forgive them, which was illegal and was said to be illegal several times, and still sent out that false hope, even sending people checks, $10,000, $20,000, saying that this is to pay it off, and then they spent that money and then they wanted it back. That, stuff like that it fueled the fire. But to have the mindset of, okay, so I don't want to pay this money back, I shouldn't have to. Well, you can stop paying, let it ruin your credit, let it go. It's not going to go away, but you don't have to pay it back. But then don't bitch to the masses that you shouldn't have to pay it back. You borrowed that money, you have to pay it back. And that's what happens in a utopian society when everybody gets what they want for a certain amount of time and then it's taken away. You see what happens and you see the collapse. And it's hard to relate that to mice that were running around that just got free food and water that they had to fight for before. But it shows how if you indoctrinate somebody with a utopian outlook, a socialist outlook, and then they don't get it, which will never happen, look at how they react. They cry, moan, bitch, instead of doing something about it, instead of honoring their responsibilities as like paying off your student loans, going out and working for a living and doing it like the masses done and remaining in the middle class, rather than thinking that, okay, I got this degree that I don't want to pay it back. I've borrowed way too much money. I got a degree in underwater firefighting, but now I can't get a job to pay these student loans back. So instead of bucking up and doing something else, no, I'm just going to sit here and cry and bitch and moan that I shouldn't have to pay it back. And that is the mindset that if you don't get out of it, it's going to ruin you for the rest of your life because you're only wasting time. And as a society, when you feed that type of outlook or feed that type of attitude, it only gives them more power in their mind that, okay, well, I don't have to do anything. I can just bitch about it enough and then it'll go away. But it doesn't.
Yeah, no, it's such a great point. And I know for me, like I've been looking a lot into this as well, especially when it comes to gambling. I was doing more research on that because the online gambling, it's like I like to take a lot of breaks from gambling because it can get really aggressive really fast. And I can't even enjoy sports because each and every single ad is about gambling. And as they legalize it more and more, because gambling is a luxury behavior. And so as I've seen it like more and more and more, I was doing more research on it. The number of bankruptcies being claimed in any state that is legalizing gambling is skyrocketing. Like everybody thinks that, like because we see in media, um, like why was the movie The Hangover so popular? Well, yeah, one, it is funny, but two, it glorifies that Vegas lifestyle. And we glorify those types of things across the board. And everybody thinks that everything works itself out. Like you're just going to win that jackpot one day. You're going to win the lottery one day. And the more we keep forcing that like into people's eyes, it kind of programs them to do it. But if you look at the house odds, you're set to lose over long term, no matter what, because you are coming at a losing percentage. And it's almost like we want everybody to live way, way, way beyond their means. And year over year, we are pushing that narrative to live even further beyond your means. And I don't know. I'd have to look up the statistics again, but it blew my mind. The increase of bankruptcy claims are like, I think it's up like 25% in any state that legalizes gambling, like especially online gambling and sports gambling. That's insane. Like when you have to declare bankruptcy, you completely destroy your credit for 7 years. And that also can affect like you getting another job. That affects employment. It's insanity. And nobody even thinks about that. It's like, I know I made this mistake a little bit. And fortunately, I did take, I've taken personal loans before, especially during the COVID times. I did just because I was able to get a really low rate. But then I stupidly took a much higher interest loan like later down the line. And I was like, holy crap, this is accumulating like crazy. So I just paid it off immediately because I was like, I can't do this. Mm-hmm. And we don't, it's almost like they're just like dangling a carrot for us. And without doing the actual research and having the discipline to do things the right way, then people get themselves caught in this trap. And I think it's crazy. Like, so with this loan I'm co-signed on, it's like $500 a month, which quite frankly, at my age and income is nothing. I'm not paying it, but it's not anything nuts. But I was like watching another video today of this woman complaining about it, where she has to pay like $1,500 per month. That's rent. Like, how did you walk yourself into the situation and you're complaining and saying, I'm just not going to pay it? I can't pay that. I can't pay 2 rents. It's like,
should have thought about that.
Okay, you can't pay 2 rents. How do you get yourself in this situation? What are we doing here?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's, when it comes to the student loan thing, you got to understand, okay, a $300,000 mortgage, which you pay over 30 years, you're going to pay about $1,800 to $2,000 a month on that mortgage. Why would a student loan be any different? Because you pay it off in the same time, but unfortunately kids don't think about that when they're signing that dotted line to get the loan, because as it costs them anything, it's being given to them. They don't think about the consequences later on. But you brought up a really good point a few minutes back about when it comes to the experiment that we were originally talking about how, the beta mice, let's say that, beta male mice were not alpha. So they couldn't compete with the males that were still reproducing and still making more babies in the utopian society that was created for them. So they essentially became homosexuals, and not really in the sexual sense, but instead of going out and trying to find a female mate, they just palled around with other beta males, and that became their companion. And that you hit the nail on the head when you said MGTOW and black pill. And that's what a lot of young men are doing nowadays when they're in a scarcity mindset and they are a 3 or 4 as a male, probably overweight, still not doing very good financially, possibly even still living with their parents, and can't go out or can't get on the sites, Tinder, Bumble, whatever, the ones are popular right now. And they don't get any matches because only 20% of the guys that go on those get the matches of 80% of the women. And because it's all looks based, instead of fucking getting rid of the apps, going to the gym, getting in a little bit of better shape, maybe taking care of themselves a little bit better, maybe doing what they need to do to make a little bit more money, they would rather just use that as an excuse to go I'm now MGTOW. So I'm a man going my own way, which means you have no other choice. Instead of making the changes to get the things that you want in life, you're going to label it. You're going to say, oh, I'm just MGTOW, I'm just black pill, and continue doing what you're doing. And then later on, just like now, you're going to complain about it even more. And that's what happens. That's what happened to these mice. And that's what's going to continue happening here until young men start waking up and realizing, okay, everybody doesn't get a 9 or a 10. If you're not a 9 or a 10, what makes you think you deserve one? I wish we had, I don't know what his name, the guy that does with the drawings with the hypergamy and all that kind of stuff. Is very
Homath?
That's very true. Yeah, Homath. It's very true. However, if you're a 5 or a 6 as a male, you have no problem, should have no problem getting a 5 or 6 as a female. But don't just get discouraged because you're going on the apps and you're not getting any matches, and a couple matches you do get end up being scams. Well, learn how to talk to women in real life. Stop using this excuse to just play video games and get fatter. Stop using an excuse not to try to level up at work and make more money. Learn how to another way to get the things that you want out of life instead of curling in a ball and labeling yourself as something that makes you feel good inside for the time and living your life aimlessly without purpose, where you don't do anything because you're going to end up taking your soul away from yourself.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point, and no offense meant by this, but Kevin, you're shorter than me.
I'm very short.
we're both very much shorter than Josh. But look at yourself. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. But look at yourself. You're in shape. You're successful. You're disciplined. You did everything to be the best you can be, and it shows. I mean, when we were out there in Maryland, like, the charisma that you bring in conversation is phenomenal. Like, so you did the work and you get the results from that. So there's nothing to complain about where it's like, oh, it needs to be 6 figures, 6-pack abs, 6 feet tall. Like, no, that's not how it works. You just need to find your deficiencies, work on them, however way you need to, depending on what that deficiency is. And then everything works itself out. I don't understand why hard work, it's called hard work for a reason. It's not called easy work. It's called hard work because it does. It takes that discipline. It takes that time. It takes that focus. But then when you do that, everything works itself out. I don't understand why that's such a hard concept for people.
Yeah. Well, you know, and it's not a hard concept. It's people, don't, especially men, they don't want to do the work. They don't want to put in an effort, you know, especially now that we're so social media driven that, you know, you go on Instagram or you go on TikTok and, you know, most of the creators, especially the male creators, talking about how the best way to get a woman, you know, they're the 6'2", tan, 6-pack, you know, great look that never had to struggle with women. And then this guy might be a little overweight, might be like me, a little bit short, you know, and then, oh, I can't never be like that, so I should never try. Well, no, I mean, you don't always have to be that, you know, all the sixes, the 6-pack abs, 6-figure income, 6 foot tall, 600 horsepower car. I think there's 6 of them altogether. I can't remember, but 6 inches, you know, that's another one. But, you know, if you let that play into your mindset and your psyche, like if I said, okay, fuck, I'm not tall, you know, I'm short. Oh, that means I will never get a woman. You know, that's stupid. But to think I'm going to get a 5'11" supermodel, no, I mean, I probably won't, but I've dated women that were 3 inches taller than me, you know, because I don't let that hinder me from being myself, being a little bit more charismatic, being quick-witted, being charming. That's the stuff that will get you a foot in the door. You know, I will not be able to get on a dating website and have 50 matches just because I will be honest about my height, for one. And then also, two, I'm not the best looking guy on a picture. You know that yourself, Alex. I take shitty, terrible pictures. But
it's so funny how bad your pictures are. And it doesn't make any sense because you're not bad looking. You look great right now. But somehow, every time it's a picture.
But I accept that. But at the end of the day, too, I learned that a long time ago when it came to the dating websites. And I've got my matches and went on dates and that kind of stuff. But then I realized this is not real. I'm being judged solely on my looks at the very beginning. And then text messaging for 3 days before we even get to a phone call. and then phone call for a week before we even get to a date. And then I said, that's a middleman that I don't want anymore. So I stopped the dating websites, and I just do it all organically now. But I have no problem walking up to someone I think I might be interested in, introducing myself, asking what their name is, and then start a conversation with them, because it's that fucking easy. But guys that don't want to put in the work and just want to go MGTOW, that's where the collapse in. They become the beta male mice that only find comfort in their friends on Steam that they play video games with, that are basically the same thing, and that's where the collapse starts to fall, because then the pool of men out there for women starts to dwindle. And then the women that are out there now think that they just because they got a 9 or 10 to fuck them one night, now they deserve one of those to have a long lasting relationship with. And so that's when the collapse of everything starts to fall. I know we kind of went full circle there, but I mean, it's how do you apply this elementary experiment with mice into the real world of what's going on in real time right now, and it's easy to kind of pick and choose to see where the chips fall from this experiment 40 years ago, 50 years ago, to what we have going on now.
Yeah, no, it 100%. And that's why, like, as men of now, like, how do we be better? Well, we need to be the leaders. We need to be the example. We need to rise to the occasion. I think about it a lot, especially when, God, I've seen Idiocracy at least 20 times now. It still is one of my favorite movies of all time. And at the very beginning, they're showing how, like, the stupid people are essentially duplicating, and their family tree is going nuts. And the very intelligent, successful people are waiting too long to have children. I mean, that's one of the things that's been bugging me a lot recently. And I think it's that, if I'm going to be an example for the future, and I know I can be a good father, well, we need to get started, because there is a time on that. And so with my girl, like, I can't wait forever, and I don't want to just have one kid or two kids. I should probably have 3 to 5, because that then becomes 5 good, well-adjusted children for society that are going to be growing up to help make the world a better place. And I think a lot of times the issue is that a lot of times when you hyper-analyze or micro-analyze every single step that you make, you end up waiting too long to get there. And so I think that's something that kind of needs to be addressed with this, is like, if we want things to get better, we have to be the leaders towards that better future.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to first recognize, what you want. That's the first thing, is basically setting a goal of what you want and developing a plan to get there, and then implementing that plan. I mean, it's not that hard, really. A lot of it starts with your network, though. If you don't have a network of men that are at or going to the levels you want to be, it's going to be very hard to get there, because especially nowadays, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great videos out on YouTube. Charisma on Command is one of them. They give you some great information. However, it's just a 5-minute video of some good information. However, there's no follow-up. There's really no way to implement. There's really no way to ask them questions, because you're receiving the information and then that's it. That's why having a strong network of, and not of best friends, a network of guys that you can count on, rely on, share information with, ask questions, get information, get steps, get help along the way that'll get you there. And then it used to be easier to do that, especially in college. Like back in my day, you had fraternities, you had lifelong people acquaintances that you met that you can still keep in contact. I was in the military for several years, active duty. That's another place where you meet a lot of good people and a lot of like-minded people, because you're on the same purpose. So, and then even after you leave the military, they're still in your life. I'm not saying they're best friends. They're not people that you see on a daily basis or you even call on Christmas, but there are people that that have your back and you can count on at any time you really need them. And a lot of young men are lacking that these days, because all you have is that one dimension source of information, whether it be YouTube or anything like that. You don't have anybody to collaborate with. And that's very important, especially as a man. I mean, you can try to be a lone wolf all you want, but I can tell you a pack of wolves eats a lot better than a lone wolf. They really do. So if you don't have a network of men and you're looking for them, you need to reach out to somebody like us.
Yeah, no, it's such a great point. I've noticed that myself because I've gone through phases of just trying to be the guy that everybody liked, and then I'd have a ton of friends. Like that was like high school for me, where I was a part of like three very distinct friend groups, where it was like the popular kids, the sports kids, and then I guess the rejects or whatever. And I was trying so hard to make everybody like me and to fit into everybody's mold, and it didn't really push me anywhere. And then I started to hone in a little bit more, like when I went to college, I joined a fraternity, and I was social chair for that, which really helped develop some of those communication skills and all that type of stuff. And then right after college, I became a pure lone wolf, and I was a lone wolf for a long time, and nothing in my life improved. And it wasn't until I then reconnected and started to do things like this. I joined my own groups, and then actually having that network and having people that are going to check me, like, because I need that for growth. And instead of getting my feelings hurt by being told that I'm doing something wrong, or hey, look at it a little bit differently, instead of letting me instead of having that emotional reaction, actually internalizing what people are saying, and then yeah, you can test it out, and if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But at least I'm getting that feedback, and then I can test it and get my own feedback loop with others around me. That's what made all the difference for me.
Yeah, yeah, and it does for a lot of guys. A lot of guys don't really know, or for some guys, it's an ego thing that asking for help is a sign of weakness. And in some cases, it might be. However, no, going to some other people that have walked the shoes you're trying to walk or got to the level you're trying to get, reaching out to them. I'll tell you right now, hate always comes from the bottom, people under you. A millionaire will never down someone trying to start a business. He's probably going to help them. Just like a bodybuilder would never down the fat person that went to the gym for the first time because he's trying to get in shape. The only people that down them are the people that want to do the same thing that guy's trying to do, but don't have the balls or don't have the motivation to get started. They'd rather down them to make themselves feel better. But, someone that's at the level you're trying to get is always going to be willing to help. So reaching out, trying to find that network, trying to find people that can help guide you, give you information that you can take with or discard, whatever. That's very important. And a lot of people, especially dads, they don't teach that anymore of, going out, trying to get the things that you want by getting with like-minded people or getting with people that have been there, asking questions, trying to different things, and instead of trying to do it on your own and then failing once and then quitting altogether. That's a lot of men do that. I've been guilty of that in the past, especially before I got past my ego of asking questions and trying to get to the next level by using information other people gave me, especially other men that have already done it.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think it's a great point too to make with that is that when you join communities, the community you join tomorrow is not going to be the community you end with. And that's something that I think discourages a lot of people, where it's the same thing with companies. The company you start with right out of school is not going to be the company you're with a few years down the line. These things are constantly changing because you are finding like the best fit and you are growing as you go. When I think to certain jobs that I've had or certain communities I was a part of, yeah, there's no way in hell I would even want to be a part of that anymore because it doesn't fit with my now more mature and advanced view on life. And that's part of the journey, is not just to give up, but to continue to grow and know when it's time to move forward, move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Take what you want, and then don't be afraid to be honest with yourself. Be saying, okay, I tried this and not this. I tried this group, and 30 days later, my life hadn't changed completely, and so I need to move on. If you could be honest with yourself, say, I joined this network. I tried. I really did. I put in the work. I know that myself from the information and the advice and the brotherhood that I was given. However, it didn't work out, then you can move on. But, we've seen, especially in the minute of now, we've had a few guys that joined and then come to us, never involved in the meetings, never read the readings and discussions that we do, was never part of the webinars, and then come to us 45 minutes later and was like, I'm not getting anything out of this, but you didn't put anything into it. You don't just join a group and then 30 days later, your life has changed. You basically, you do it in the hopes of having motivation and having a team behind you as you work on yourself to get better. And a lot of, some guys that don't do that, we see that. But, if you honest with yourself and you're ready to put in the work and do the dedication and really better yourself as a man, so you don't have to use MGTOW as an excuse. You don't have to, claim black pill or, use excuses like, oh, well, she was never mine. It was just my turn. Stupid shit like that. Then you're ready for a network like what we have.
Absolutely. No, and it's absolutely fantastic. We'll go ahead and wrap here. I do want to point out, it was just the other week we had a really fantastic webinar that you hosted. Do you want to tell everybody what that was about?
Yeah. It was actually the second one in the series that we've started for this year. The first one was basic investing and starting from the bottom, working up. And then this one, we talked about the advantages that you gain by keeping your money in certain places, whether it be a Roth IRA, a brokerage account, high yield investment, the advantages of compound interest, capital gains, dividends, what those are, what those mean, how they accumulate over time. And then we've got another one coming up here pretty soon that I'll be doing, because I will talk to you and Josh about this. I know we're all going to do our own webinars, but I'm going to start doing one monthly, no matter what.
Okay.
No matter what happens. Yeah, because it's something I love doing. And we had one of the best conversations. I think we had 9 of the members in there talking about this. And then even after the webinar, I think that took about 30 minutes. And then we just talked about 30 minutes, exchanging ideas, exchanging strategies, exchanging questions and answers. And it was fucking great.
Yeah, no, it really was. And it was a great refresher on some of the stuff and how to continually have your money grow. But it also taught me a lot of things that I hadn't thought about, especially when it comes to dividends. That's something really to pay attention to, because I know I was getting some dividends from NVIDIA, but then I ended up selling my NVIDIA stock at like the peak, when realistically I probably shouldn't. I probably should have just let it keep accumulating. So it made me rethink my investment portfolio as well. But yeah, no, it's exciting. And within the community, we do these webinars once a month. We have once a month meetings. And then we have special events where we do cross activities with other men's groups that we align with. And it's really, really just been fantastic across the board. So I'm going to drop in there, I'm going to drop a link. If you guys are interested in joining, essentially just put the information in there and then we'll reach out to you. We want to make sure that we have at least like a 10-minute conversation with you to make sure that your values and our values align. We don't want to waste your time, and I'm sure you don't want your time wasted either. And if you're ready to join a community like this and really drive to be the best man as possible that you can be, and we know you can be, then by all means, go ahead and apply there. But final thoughts in this entire thing. I mean, I think the Mouse Utopia experiment is just fascinating, because the parallels to what society is currently looking like when you really do have everything right there in front of you, it's a little eerie how one-to-one comparison it can be. Granted, yes, we're a little bit more complicated than mice, but it was really interesting just to see we actually put this to the test. And this is something that I don't think is talked about enough. I think social psychology is absolutely fascinating, and to see it like real time, and how when you get cramped on resources and you have nothing to do because you're living in a utopia, how everything kind of turns on itself because you're trying to find something to do. And if you're not working for anything, like, I don't know, I guess turns the mice gay, makes the mice become cannibals. Like, dude, it's wild. It's wild to see, and all the parallels. Do you have any final thoughts on it?
Well, no, it's like I was saying before, if you, as humans, as we are complex, we're by far the most complex creatures on this earth. If you don't have a purpose, if you don't have something to strive for, you die inside. It takes your soul. It really does. And, that's why, lottery winners, we talk about, oh, if I win the lottery, blah, this, that, yeah. If you notice, the majority of lottery winners, 7 years after they win the lottery, they're in a worse financial position than they were before they won the lottery, because then they lose their need to work. They lose their need to pinch pennies. They lose their need to budget. And then if they've never had any money, they just blow it. And then because they lost their purpose, they lost their soul. And I'm not saying they lost their soul to the devil. They lost their reason to get up every night. They lost their reason to get out there and do something productive because they didn't need to. And I think that's what happened in this utopia. I think that's what's happening with a lot of society nowadays, because people are losing their purpose because they think they deserve something more than what they have and don't want to work to get there. And when they don't, look at what happens. I mean, society collapses. And we're in a very, very seesaw time right now, especially here in America. Because I think you mentioned it one time, Alex. You look at all the dynasties in history, whether it be the Greek dynasty, the Romans, all that. About 250 years is where they were on top before it went to shit. Well, here in the West, we're at almost about that 250-year mark of really striving. I'm not saying conquering the rest of the world, but progressing in a way that people want to cross deadly rivers and walk thousands of miles just to be in this place. That should say something about the society. But if we don't maintain the soul and the purpose and the drive, then it will collapse and it will be taken away from us.
Yeah. 250 years is less than, well, I guess it's July. So it's a little bit over a year away. So
yeah,
just something interesting to think about.
Yeah,
but if you guys
it's not going to happen in it overnight. It's not going to happen in my lifetime.
Right.
But if you've got kids and you're going to have grandkids and think about their kids, how do you want their life to be? Do you want them to be prosperous and have every opportunity that we've had? Because I'll tell you right now, there's no better time to be alive than there is right now, especially in the West. We have every opportunity. There's no other time in history that was better, with more opportunity and more options out there to be successful and to thrive than there is now. So to the people that hate this country, they blow my fucking mind, and they think it can be better or different. People, like I said, people wouldn't walk thousands of miles and cross deadly rivers just to get on the soil to experience what we have here. So don't take that for granted. Don't think that's a reason to not work for it, and stop making excuses for the things that you can control.
Absolutely. 100%. And if you guys need help finding your purpose, Men of Now community is absolutely fantastic for doing so. We can help guide you in the right direction. We'll have people to hold you accountable. And even if you're not ready to do that, well, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, stay in tune with us and the different shows that we're going to be doing every single week. And let's be the Men of Now, and let's conquer this. Until next time, guys. Peace out.